Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach, Henry Schneider. Hello, everyone. This is Henry Schneider with the Business Performance Podcast, and today it's my pleasure to talk with Fritz Frtizius, who's the president of Arch DevOps LLC, the company that's been around for about 5 years. And they specialize in software test automation, RPAs, and they follow the ABCs: assess, build, coach, and deliver. So, Fritz, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Okay, so to begin with, could you briefly describe Arch DevOps, what types of customers you work with, and the types of products and services you do provide to them?
Sure thing. Well, we're a boutique consultancy. We're a pretty small operation, and we specialize in providing a lot of process improvement around software testing. We automate testing, not all of it. We're not trying to get rid of testers, but we do it in a way where the testers are able to contribute to the process. They're able to contribute to the automation, and it's a cultural change. We work to bridge the gap between developers, BAs, QAs, management, project managers. Everybody's aware of what everybody's doing. It's complete transformational stuff. And we tend to help companies in the 50 to 200 employee range, or if they're a giant corporation, they're usually made of smaller organizations that are about that size. Any sector, so medical, financial, insurance, any vertical, doesn't matter what kind of architecture or stack they use. We come in, and as you said, we assess what they've got, and we build a custom solution for them, and then coach them on how to use it, and then deliver something that can help them from years to come.
Okay, so let's jump right in here about RPAs. Are you coding or using RPAs to automate the testing, or are you using RPAs to automate mundane activities?
The mundane one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of a recent thing. I mean, really, RPA has been around for a long time. It just hasn't had that acronym slapped on it, but it's still automation. It's just generally got a different target audience. People that are doing clerical work or data entry or moving files around, that's in RPA. More recently, actually, as recently as after I scheduled this podcast interview, we've actually been getting into automating things for social media. There's a lot of time being snarfed up on social media, and just kind of doing some one-off things here. As I run the business, I'm saving like 3 hours a day doing this stuff. And we started getting some interest in it. Hey, do you automate things for LinkedIn or Twitter? It's like, yeah, we do that. It's the same principle. It's the exact same stuff we do for our customers for test automation, but just a different target audience. So pretty exciting.
Yeah. So have you thought about using RPAs for test automation, or is that just too customized that you can't make it work?
That's a really good question. And I think it kind of requires defining what RPA is and what it isn't versus what people generally think of when they think test automation. Like they think test automation, they think Selenium. They think, okay, we got a website, we've got a web driver, we're going to interact with the website in some way. Certain things about RPA do fit in that category. Some of them don't. And that's something that we grapple with every day. It's like, well, we want to use the right terminology. We want to use the stuff that customers are familiar with so that we're speaking the lingo that they understand, but there's still kind of some foggy between the two. Like, I'm not opposed to it. There are certain applications where RPA would work. Other ones where it's like, that's probably low tech for what we're trying to do.
Okay. All right. So are you building your own bots, or are you shopping it from other developers?
We build our own bots. We're definitely makers at heart, and that's something that's part of the culture change that we bring to companies. Everybody's got a little bit of what I call the maker's mindset. And if you can trigger that, then you have a really powerful force for change. If people feel good and safe about a solution because they had a hand in building it, and
Mhm.
they understand how it works, then they're like, this isn't nearly as scary. What if I can do this over here too? And some really great things happen. So yeah, we're constantly tinkering, man. We're always making things, we're experimenting and saying, oh, that didn't work, or hey, that worked really good, and just finding what works and learning and pitching what doesn't.
All right. Well, that leads into my next question, which deals with quality. Quality is a pretty broad term.
Yeah.
So, how do you define what quality is?
Well, I think our biggest and best metric, this is going to sound kind of woo woo, but happiness, that really defines quality. That's the chief metric that we go after. And what I mean by that is if we're dealing with a client and the work that we do helps them release software faster and with a lot fewer defects, then their clients will be happy, which makes them happy, which makes us happy.
Mhm.
So it's just a happiness chain. That's a new phrase. Made that up just now. Happiness chain. Everybody's happy. Um, but yeah, I really define quality based on that. People know when the results are good.
Mhm.
People know what good software is. Not many people have experienced it, but they know what it is, and it's a feeling, and it makes you feel really good that yeah, I'm working at a spot that they know what they're doing. We're keeping our customers thrilled with our offerings, and that carries on up to us too.
Yeah. Well, there's a funny thing is with that is that when people are happy, you just have a feeling. You don't hear back from them. But when they're unhappy, boy, they let you know.
Oh yeah, success is quiet and failure is loud. I learned that in the financial sector. It's like we're losing $1 million a second. What the heck? It's like, hey, but if we're doing our jobs right, yeah, it looks like we're not doing anything at all, doesn't it?
Yeah. 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 Don't rock the boat. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
All right. So when you're working with companies, what are some of the misconceptions that you encounter when it comes to quality and business performance?
Uh-huh. How long do we have on this podcast? An hour? Boy, we should have scheduled it for 3 hours. Well, I think one of the biggest ones. So we're dealing with test automation, right? And a lot of times people think 100% automation. All of our tests need to be automated for it to be correct. And it's like, man. I mean, we have a spiel for those people, but when they say that to us, it's like, well, this is an uphill battle, and we're going to have to educate. That's one of the biggest misconceptions is that if you automate 100% of your testing, that you're getting like this massive return. And it's like, well, you have to maintain it. It's not going to work forever. If you change your software, you're going to have to change your automation. So if you have 10,000 tests automated instead of just a few hundred, you've multiplied your effort by orders of magnitude. So we try to avoid that. Another big misconception comes from the testers themselves. I mean, there's always a stigma of, oh, automation is going to take my job. And it's like, no, it's really not. Like, we're here to we're here to augment the experience, right? Like, there are some things in the day to day that I bet really, if we're honest with each other, you would rather not do because there are other more valuable things you can focus your time on.
Definitely.
And we're not trying to automate everything away. But what we want to do is make you more valuable because the stuff that you're really, really good at, like exploratory testing and like asking the questions and actually testing versus just checking, um, you'll have more time for that. It's going to increase your value. But that's another uphill battle. Like
Mhm.
we've had to kind of come alongside and work with people and be like, come see what we're doing. We're not going to do this in the dark. Let's work together on this. I'll show you how to do it, and then you can do one, and then you'll understand. But those are two of the biggest misconceptions
I'm going to
that we've
say
run
it's
into.
kind of a controversial statement here. I would think any tester that's worried about losing their job because of automation probably shouldn't be a tester.
Yeah, and I think that is like there's no controversy here. I'm not going to disagree. If if somebody's role, if 100% of somebody's role can be automated, and they're not actively looking for things that yes, I can add value here in a way that only a human can, then that might not be the best fit for them. Because it's if you're doing testing right, it's not comfortable. There's a lot of unknown unknowns. There's a lot of risk, and it's up to us to shoulder that risk and communicate that to people and say, hey, this product is not ready to be released, and here's why, and here's our plan for that. If you just want to click buttons and stuff, then you're not challenging yourself.
And one of my favorite questions for testers when I have an audit is basically, if you run a test case and you find no defects, what does that tell you about the test case?
Well, it may not be a very high value test case. I got a good buddy of mine. You might even know him. His name is Regression Testing. He's in the Netherlands, I think. And he used this term about, what was it? It's kind of like, it's like an agriculture term. You know, like when you spray pesticide on crops, and then after a while, there's some bugs that are in there that don't die, but you keep spraying the same things, and the bugs are there, but there's no effect. That, whatever it is, it's like pesticide resistance, I think. Tests like that tend to create pesticide resistance. Now, if you run a test and that's the first time you ran it and you didn't find anything, then okay. If it's the 100th time you've run it and it hasn't found anything, then okay, well, it's probably not, maybe we're not hitting the right part of the system. Maybe we're just trying to go for a warm fuzzy rather than actually challenging the system and saying, hey, let's see if we can find some bugs here. And kind of goes back to the same mindset of, if you're a tester and you just want to click buttons and stuff and not actually dig in and test. Same thing with an automated test. If you've got a bunch of them that don't really do a whole lot, you haven't found any bugs in a while, maybe time to change some things up.
Right. Yeah. That's the type of response I expect. And I also say, basically, why do you have a test case? What's the purpose? The purpose is to find defects. That's the only purpose. Find the defects. If you don't find defects, then it doesn't mean you've got zero defect code. It means the test case is not robust enough, most likely.
Yeah, it means you didn't find any bugs there, but there might be some elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay. So, now from you since you've been in business as a business owner for 5 years, today, what's your number one biggest challenge with performance that you encounter?
With performance of the business itself?
Yes, of the business, yes.
Wow. Today of all days, you got to ask me that question, brother. Finding work. So right now, it's February 3rd, and this is a notoriously slow time of year for finding business. Everybody's coming out of hibernation. They're figuring out, hey, where are we going to spend our money? And they'll start coming knocking, but holy moly, the first 2 months are just like the doldrums. And then couple that with the fact that it's only been recently that I've been dead set on working on the business and not in the business, not being in the business, working in billable hours. I'm working on process and outreach for people and finding ways that I could farm the stuff out, like make enough revenue, hire a person to do these things, and then just keep doing that until it's a self-sustaining thing. But that's the biggest challenge. And I mean, with that comes the mental struggle. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, I tell people I kind of shot myself in the foot starting a business with a tester mindset, because we're trained to worry about the corner cases. And then you get into real life and it's like, oh my goodness, what about this? What about that? It's like, that likely isn't going to happen probably. So don't spend the energy. Right. But yeah, I mean, that's really the biggest challenge. I think I retract my first answer. It's mental. The biggest challenge is mental. Okay. And it's because of this other stuff.
Yeah. All right. Now, when you're talking to your clients, what are some of the common fears that they have with dealing with testing and automation and all those types of things? Not the misconceptions, but the fears that they come to you with, that they're worried about you trying to solve or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's there's fear coming from a couple different directions. Like if a customer's coming to us They know they need help. They know that they can't ship software as fast as they want. They can ship it as fast as they can, but they can't go much faster than that. It's kind of a maximum safe speed, right? They go much faster, they're going to start getting a little wiggly and woo, it's scary. But then the other side of it, the other pressure that they feel is ultimately at the end of the day, we're going to be coming in and changing how they do their work. That's kind of scary because human mind wants to conserve energy. We're just wired that way. So to bring in a consultancy that says, hey, we've identified 5 or 6 places where we think you need to make a change, and we can help you affect that change. But it's change. It's going to drastically affect your day-to-day, and we'll be here with you. But if you keep doing things the same way, you're going to fail. And here's why. And we've gotten pushback on that. It's like, we get it, but really, if we're honest with ourselves, you can't continue doing exactly the same thing and expect a different result. It just doesn't work that way. So yeah, we have to have some, like, let's have a kneecap session, sit knee to knee, and just have a frank conversation and say, are you going to get where you want to go doing things this way, or do you want to make a change? And that usually either qualifies or disqualifies them right away, to be frank.
All right, so you have that frank one-on-one discussion. Then, so if they say, okay, I'll listen to you, how do you get them to overcome those fears then and trust you?
Really just with a lot of open communication. Couple of things that we do just as a bonus for our clients is we'll set up a dedicated Slack channel where we're able to talk directly with them. Okay. If they've got any kind of question or they've got any kind of concern or whatever, and they want to chat with us one-on-one, or they can see the chatter between our own team members about them, like, okay, we're working on this, we're working on that, then they're part of the solution. We'll also put together a Trello board as we're taking a project and decomposing it and saying, okay, here are these 80 cards that as part of this project we're going to be working on, and we'll be putting notes and moving them around and stuff. We'll invite them to the board so they can see what's going on. But building trust just comes with communication and kind of showing them we're not wanting to hide anything from you. I mean, there's a limit to, like, we don't want to spam you with all kinds of information. We want to show you the stuff that you think is important. We want that transparency, but we don't want to go too far the other way and say, no, we got it. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. See you in 6 months, because that doesn't work, oddly enough. But yeah, just kind of starting off and doing assessments and showing them, hey, here's some things about your company. And a lot of them, they're things that they knew already but didn't say anything. So we'll be looking at individual people and kind of personality profiling them and saying, this person will be an evangelist. This person would be a champion. This person would be an opposer. And we have strategies for how we work with each one. And they know their people better than we do. And they'll look at the assessment and say, dang, son, that's spot on. They know what they're doing. And then the solution that we build is tuned to that group of people. And we start pulling folks in. So we're all about changing the culture. We want to win people's hearts. We don't want to win their brains.
Okay, so are you actually doing the testing yourself too, or are you just setting it up so you can automate the testing?
We're doing both. Part of it includes kind of coming up with a set of good test cases, a good representative sample that they can use, kind of like Lego bricks, because as they build out future tests, they're going to use parts and pieces. Nobody writes original code anymore. I mean, it's all copy paste, if we're honest with ourselves. So they'll have all the little Lego bricks that they need to be successful. But yeah, part of every package includes writing some tests, making sure to automate some really high value stuff so that they start getting a benefit right away.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about what perceived obstacles do you see out there that prevents you from being successful with your clients?
Let's see. I think sometimes, well, not I think, it has happened. Sometimes people aren't real available for questions. Like, they'll have a really complex architecture with like 7 or 8 layers to it, and it's COBOL at the base, and but you can't touch that, that kind of thing, right? It's just, oh my goodness. And then you try to get login credentials, and nobody knows how to get that. And it's like, well, we literally can't begin our work until we get those, and the meter's running. So, um, but that's part of the process, right? I mean, some companies just don't have that level of process where they're like, hey, we've got some new people, they're consultancy, we need to get them set up with our system, ready, set, go. A lot of companies don't have that. Yeah, that and that resistance to change that I mentioned before. Some people they'll give you one word answers if you ask them a question, or they don't respond to an email, so you got to call them, or they just let it go to voicemail. You got to show up like physically and be like, hey, just wanted to chat with you, I had a question,
I don't have
but
time.
yeah, I got time, nobody got time. But yeah, I mean, it's always a battle, it's always a struggle with trying to get people to have the time to work with us, because we want to foster that trust and to make sure that we're giving them what they need. So getting the feedback from them about, hey, check out this, we made this change, what do you think? If they don't respond, then it's like, shoot, are we going the right direction? Like, I don't know, right? We gotta have that feedback from them.
So when you encounter those types of challenges now, are you then taking that and factoring it into when you start a new engagement to make certain you cover those points before you stumble over them again?
Yes, sir, we are. And that kind of goes back to how I used to not be a process nerd, and now I'm a huge one. I'm a late bloomer. But yeah, one of the things that we roll into our proposals when we give a proposal to a client is, you agree that you're going to be available for up to however many hours per week for questions. Like, that's the minimum, okay, or maximum. Stuff like, we have to have access to your key systems, and that should be done before we hit boots on the ground the first day. If it requires physical access, if we got to be on site, like all of that stuff's got to be set up before we get there. Like, we want to hit the ground running and get you guys the value. And calling these things out has been something that, oh, we didn't think of that. Yeah, we should totally get that set up. Why didn't we think of that, right? Yeah, they need key cards. So it's stuff like that. But yeah, we're always looking for ways to improve our process. Every week, actually, the team and I, we get together, whether we're doing a project or we're just doing stuff on our own, and we'll have a retrospective, and we'll say, hey, what went good this week? What sucked? And what should we stop, or continue doing? And figure out, okay, what pieces of this should go into a process? How do we make sure that our future engagements are better?
Yeah, and now that's the key piece with the retrospectives, because most times the retrospective stops with, let's just socialize it, and then you don't do
Yep.
anything with the information. You really have to
Yep.
factor that back in and change behaviors so you don't encounter it again.
Yep. Exactly right. And it starts with defining what it is that didn't go well. If you just have kind of a general malaise, it's like, well, things kind of suck, but I don't know why. It's like, you got to define the suck. If you can define that, and then figure out, okay, what are we going to do to prevent this particular thing that we don't want to see happen again? Let's talk about it as a team, and then figure out where that goes in the process. Then you have something actionable. Yeah.
All right, and you really need to go through root cause analysis and stuff like that. If it's a critical problem and you don't know why it occurred, you need to step back and take 10 minutes and just work through and say, what are, you look at, I don't know if you ever know about the fishbone diagram?
I've seen some, but I have not made one myself.
Yeah, there's like 5 things. There's management, there's people, there's process, there's tools, there's the environment, are the major bones on the diagram. And then you just start talking about each of those categories. Which one is there anything in here that would have caused that problem? And it's a way of it's sort of like a mind map type of thing to really help you drill down into it. And then you have something you can work with.
Okay. What were those 5 things? I'm going to write those down.
Okay, it's people, process, environment, management, tools, and training. And
Okay.
those are the broad categories that usually point you in the right direction. And then you can, you'll learn from it. And you say, well, maybe, okay, we don't have to worry about people so much. It's way more tools and technology. As you get smarter and smarter and go through this over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, so Fritz, can you share a story with our viewers where you helped a company overcome some obstacles and succeed?
Sure. Well, probably the most recent one I can think of is one of our, think back here. Yeah. Well, there was a project I was on recently where they were having problems. They're a small shop, and they reached out to me directly, and they were like, "We need your help. Can you come in and help us?" And we did the assess, build, coach thing, and made sure that they were in good shape. But yeah, they were able to overcome that challenge of, we've got all these tests that we're trying to run manually, and all of our BAs are going nuts. They don't have like formal QA testers there. They've got BAs that do it. But we're kind of limited how fast we can test, and we need to automate it. But we were able to help them. We were able to help the one employee that I had at the time, because he was actually able to manage the whole project himself. Just about beginning to end. I was involved at the very beginning, but after that, it was mostly him. And so he was excited. He's like, man, that was an amazing experience. That's a lot of growth. And so he was pumped about it. I was pumped about it. It was all good. So it was a two-way win.
So if you could distill that down to like a single sentence, what would be the moral of that story?
Enable others to succeed on their own.
Okay, very good. Now, when it comes to quality and what you're doing, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that you need to keep in mind as you try to ensure the quality levels?
Conserving your energy is a big one. And I think, kind of hearkening back to what we talked about before with running tests that don't find bugs, it's really easy for people to get into this like dopamine drip cycle where every test you run, it passes. Yay, oh, I feel better. There's an even greater chance that I'm going to get home to see my kids this evening and eat a hot meal for once. And it kind of, like you're using your energy, but you're not getting a lot out of it, right? Like you're not finding bugs. You're not actually proving quality. So being aware of, okay, I could spend the next 2 hours running these other tests that'll probably pass, or I can spend some of that time exercising this part of the system and see what we can turn up over there. And the sooner I find bugs over there, the better off we'll all be. That's a fairly common pitfall.
Okay. So how do you approach regression testing? What is your approach for that?
Well, me personally, I always start with testing the parts of the system that were touched last. Okay. Statistically, that's where the bugs are going to be. They're going to be where the code was last touched, unfortunately. Humans are the leading cause of software defects. Doesn't matter what company it is, oddly enough. And so yeah, starting where things were disturbed the most recently is where I start. Branching out from there, it takes a little bit of understanding of the systems, but what is upstream of that spot and what is downstream of that spot, and test what's downstream first, because if this seems to be working fine, but it's messing things up further down the line, you want to catch that. But you find that if you were to diagram the entire system, you'd have like concentric circles of where things are being tested. The epicenter being what was most recently touched, the stuff that it affects, and the stuff that's affected by that, all the way out until you're happy enough that, yeah, we're probably fine. We haven't found anything yet. We're not likely to. Or it's some weird edge case that hardly anybody's going to find. Then sign off on it and ship it.
Okay. All right. Now, would you please take a few moments and talk about what the defining moment that occurred in your life that placed you where you are today?
Well, funny story. I got let go from a place. I had been sitting on the idea of stepping out, starting a consultancy, and I got that idea like my first time as a contractor, like as a contractor on a W-2 for some recruitment firm. That kind of put it in like, hey, this is really cool. Like it's exciting. It's hourly, yay, And that's what put the bug in my head. But a couple years after that, I was a contractor at a place, and it wasn't personal, but they had to cut a bunch of people, and they started, of course, with contractors. We're like, you know, we're the first to go. So sad. Um, but I had all the information up on the Secretary of State website, and I was just kind of hesitating, like, should I do it? Like, should I start the business? I don't know if I've got everything filled out. And the day that I got my papers, I went home and I went and I clicked the button and I became a business. Um, I I will not sit here and lie to you guys and say I knew what it was going to be like when I entered in. I thought it's just going to be finding clients and doing the work and yada yada, same as I've ever done. And it's like, no, it it's just gotten steadily more and more challenging. But that was really the deciding factor. That was it. That was the push I needed.
All right. So that was kind of like a flip of a switch thing.
Yeah, it really was. Or a boot to the pants, whichever analogy. But yeah, that was, I had to do it. I had to do it. You go through life sometimes and you think, I can't not do this. That's how I felt.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you pulled the trigger to do that, did you go into it with some clients already, or did you go just cold turkey and you had to go out and start chumming to get work?
Wow. Well, so the company that had let me go, graciously enough, they gave me like a month's notice. Um, and I had been thinking about doing this before I got let go. I had no idea it was coming. And I had just called around and was talking with people, previous managers, and saying, hey, I'm thinking about starting a consultancy doing test automation. And is that something that you think would be useful? And I think it was like the second call was an old boss of mine. And he's like, holy moly, we actually need that. When can you start? And I'm like, I have no idea. A couple weeks. I didn't know I was getting let go. So I'm like, standard 2 weeks. I don't know. Um, I don't want to drop bad news on this client that's getting ready to let me go. Um, but yeah, I had that one pretty much in hand. There was like a week's break between the end of that contract and the first of this brand new client that I had gotten. Um, so I did kind of do the Tarzan thing where you let go of one vine and you had another one there, but at least I could see the other vine. And I'm like, I just got to grab it and just whoa, keep going. Um, so that wasn't super hard. I felt like I kind of had an edge. Like I know there are other companies or other people that start and they're like, yeah, just one day I flipped my desk and walked out and was like, I'm never working for the man again. And I have to go without a paycheck for 17 years and eat beans out of a can. And I don't have a story like that. I started another thing. It was exactly like what I just got let go from. And I'm like, so
Yeah, that happens that way. And that's probably about the best way to do that to form a consultancy. Because if you just say, okay, walk out the door, I'm going to form my own company, then it's an uphill battle because then you're going to have a period of time where there's just no business for many months before you find that first client that's willing to take it on with the risk of working with you.
mhm, yeah. And I'm not a risky guy to work with. I mean, for what it's worth.
Okay, now in a similar vein, when you think about your life, could you share an experience you had maybe growing up or early on in your career that still influences how you approach business?
Hmm. Yeah, I can. I can. I think it was my first, well, there's two. I have two answers. Can I do two answers?
Sure.
Okay. So the first is, you wouldn't probably guess it by looking at me, but I used to be a really introverted kid, very, very shy. My very first job that I had was a deli clerk. I worked at a grocery store. I was a deli clerk. I did that for probably 5 years. And I ended up kind of breaking out of my shell and finding out that, wow, talking to people isn't nearly as scary as I thought it was. The vast majority of customers, adult customers, were really, really great people. Wow. And they don't give me trouble. Amazing. I didn't think people could do that. I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about the world around me. And then the first job I had out of college was, I worked with, it was one guy, it was me and the boss and a dog. And that was the company. Like, I would program little microchips that go into electronics, and he'd do the electrical design, and we'd invent stuff. We made all kinds of things. And I remember being influenced by both of those. Like, really the thing that's carried me through is the human spirit is incredibly resilient. There were times that at the place where it was me and the boss, where we didn't have enough money in the bank to pay for the water bill. And so the water shut off. He's like, I can't afford to pay the water this month. I have to figure out where to spend money. He's like, I got to pay you, so I can't pay the water bill. So we'd bring in gallon milk jugs of water to like flush the toilets with. I mean, that was like, man, this is bootstrapping, you know? But there's just, I mean, the human spirit is amazing. It's amazing. And I think that's one of the most influential things. If you give somebody something to drive toward, or you give them a goal to shoot for, and you back them with everything they need, all the fuel they need to get to that goal, and you make them want it, they're going to go for it, and they're going to succeed. They're just gonna. And so we're like, well, how do we apply that toward business now? Like, what is it we can do to fuel people, give them that fire, that drive to be successful in this? Because the more successful they are without us being there with them, the better off we are. You know, we want to equip lots of companies to be able to do this on their own, but they got to have that drive. They got to have that fuel. So
that's pretty much a common theme that I've been seeing all the way around. It's just the leadership and the passion that you instill in people to bring out their enthusiasm and motivation. That's quite powerful.
Yep. That's the kind of leader I strive to be.
Okay, so that leads into our next question. What does success look like for Fritz?
You know, if I can take a step back from the business for 2 months and come back, and it's still running and it's still profitable, and people aren't like, oh, the hair's on fire, that's success. That's success for me. You know, I used to think, oh, if I have $1 million in the bank account by the time I'm 40, which is not too far off, so I guess I better get on the stick. I used to think that was the metric, right? Like, that's success, done, right? But what is that? What are you going to do with the $1 million? How did it get there? What are you doing to get to that point? I'm more interested in the process by which it takes to create a business that is successful, that maybe $1 million is a drop in the bucket. Maybe it's 5, I don't know. But I'm not looking at money anymore as a metric for success. I want to see, am I able to build people that build a company that can sustain without me being the long pole in the tent?
Yeah.
So I guess my metric of success is people don't need me anymore, but I guess it's kind of sad, but it's also happy.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because basically what you're moving away from, you know, the vanity type of metrics, where, you know, how much money do you have? That really doesn't tell you how well things are working with inside the company, or what's going on with the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't speak well either. It doesn't do anything to share about the character of a person. I mean, I can go sell drugs or kidneys on the black market and make a lot of money in a hurry, but that says something bad about my character. If I can take my character and build it into people and it works and it's a system where it's self-sustaining, then yeah.
Okay. So here's this. I recently read this sentence, and I want to get your thoughts on it. And it goes, small cap companies cannot offset the rising labor costs of technology as easily as large cap companies. So what do you think about that? Is that a truism?
Well, I mean, the smaller companies don't have as much revenue. I mean, it seems like, yeah, it's a truism. Of course, they don't have as much money. But I also know that the small companies aren't trying to solve the same problems as the big companies are.
Yeah.
Right? So it sounds like a truism, but it also sounds like an apples to oranges comparison.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Are we on kind of the same?
Well, it's like I'm looking at, what technology are we talking about?
Yeah.
And, of course, some technology is more expensive than others technology. So if you're looking at this, the strict, if you look at the cutting edge stuff, maybe that's true. AI, machine learning, deep learning, that's
Yeah.
out there, and it's going to take a lot of brain power to make that happen, and it's not cheap.
That's true. That's true. And it's for solving a different problem set too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really an apples to oranges comparison. Where did you see that? Where'd you read that at?
Oh, I don't remember right now. It was somewhere. It's probably
Yeah.
on LinkedIn feed someplace.
Yeah. It's on the internet. Must be true, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you got to take the internet with a grain of salt. So you got to be really careful what you.
Y'all, I know these days, easy to go astray there.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another deep thought question. What
Okay.
are your top 3 process or business capability challenges or concerns? And one right now you already talked about is the slowness of the business at this time of year. What else concerns you?
Being able to find talent to do the work. Um, I mean, I think that's one area that keeps me up at night about the same as where are we going to find work. It's very easy for us to hit a tipping point where, whoops, now we have more clients that we have people to do the work. And I've actually been spending a pretty good amount of time locating partners. They're people that are outside what we do, and they're like 1 or 2 person shops or whatever that just really specialize at like AWS or Kubernetes or whatever it is, and say, okay, well, when we get work like that, we're going to tap you guys and bring you in.
Mhm.
But then also training the talent, getting them up to speed so that they are able to be productive.
Mhm.
So we've been identifying people that would be a good fit, and we have a coding challenge we give them to see if they've got the right mindset for doing test automation. But I had somebody a while back. He's a biz dev manager at one of our clients. His name is Jeff, and he told me, he said Fritz, he's got a really deep voice. He goes, Fritz, uh, building a business is like a 3-legged stool. He says, you have to go find the clients, and you have to find the people to do the work, and you actually have to do the work. He said, and it's constant. He's like, it's never ending. It will never end until you die or you sell the business. He's like, but it's all 3 of those. And I really took that to heart. And I'm like, all right, I need to processify, which I think is also another word that's not a word. I'm new to process. I'm sorry. I'm just learning as I go. But I got to put process around each one of those 3 chair legs and say, okay, how can I systematize or automate finding talent? Or how can I do the same thing for finding work or finding people to do the work? And we're constantly coming up with new and exciting ways to be just stupid efficient at all 3. So yeah, those are the big challenges right now.
All right. Now, another good question here, and if you talked before we started talking about, just the challenges that you faced with. So now, if you had to start your business over again today after 5 years, what would you do different today than what you started out with? And what would you keep the same?
Oh man. I honestly, I don't think I'd keep anything the same. Oh my goodness. I have done almost everything the wrong way. And my whole life has been like that. I've been the kid that would find loopholes and just not to be a jerk, but like, wonder what happens if I did this. And it's like, whoops, we didn't think of that, but it worked. But I think if I had to start over, if I were gonna exit, sell this business for $5 million or whatever, and start a new thing, I would start with process. I would start with processes. I'd be like, okay, what are we doing? What is the service or product that we're providing? Who is our target market? How are we going to reach those people? How are we going to find people to do this kind of work for those people? And just wrap processes around everything
Mhm.
from the start. I didn't start doing processes. You mentioned before, I've been in business about 5 years. I didn't start forming processes around this stuff until about, I want to say, 6 months ago. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, it's just, I'm a late learner. I'm a slow learner. And when I figure things out, I'm like, boom, and then I take off and I'm like, yay, I get it, until the next big thing that I can't figure out. Um, but yeah, I would definitely be starting with process, really figuring out what it is, putting some definition around it and saying, all right, how are we going to be the most efficient at this? Ready, set, go. And and I'll tell you, I really am excited about that idea because I've thought, I'm like, well, what if that happens? What if Arch DevOps doesn't really need me so much anymore? What am I going to do with all my time? I don't want to just like retire and go on cruises and play shuffleboard for the rest of my life. I'm going to start another business. And if I do, what am I going to do? My wife and I, maybe we would start a handmade jewelry thing. Okay, well, who are our clients? Who are our distributors? And I'm just thinking the process. And I'm like, my brain doesn't do that until recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, start with process.
And, so you're just basically, if you want to look at the spectrum, you're a novice. And, once you start learning more, there's going to be more and more stuff to feed in and refine what you're doing. So as long as you go into a continuous improvement loop, then you're going in the right direction.
Yep. Well, I'm always feeling like I'm improving continuously. Every day sucks less than the last. I guess that's the metric, right? Is
Yeah,
that what I'm looking for?
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Okay, well, Fritz, thank you so much. We're going to run out of time here pretty rapidly. So how can people get in touch with you to learn more?
Easiest way is find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. I post constantly. If you want to connect with me, I've got a little bit of like just a short dossier on what I do, how we help. I've got a nice video that I can send you. If you want to contact me directly, my email address is fritz@archdevops.com. It's the same address here on my thing here. And yeah, branding, right? But yeah, I'm always available to chat. I'll give you a calendar link. We can chat, hop on a call, and get to know each other, find out more about you and what you got going on.
Let's see, cool. Well, one thing I did before we started, I looked at your website. You just watched your little video, and that looks really professional. So you must have put a lot of effort into that.
Nope, I didn't. I just put a lot of money into it. There's a really rock star group of videographers here. It's Vidzu Media. You can find them at vidzu.com, VIDZU. They do awesome work, and I want to work with them again. So just got to find some clients, get some money,
Yeah,
so I can make some more videos.
yeah, I hear you. Okay, so Fritz, you're a fantastic storyteller. I really enjoyed listening to you talk about all your experiences and your assess, build, and coach methodology. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.